Plenty of seats in the front.
All right, hi everyone, welcome to the Art Center. My name is Lexi Munson. I'm the Membership and Development Coordinator here at WBCA, and I'd like to welcome you all to White Bear Center for the Arts. We are a community-based, independent, nonprofit arts organization, and wonderful events like this that are open to everyone are made possible in part through the generosity of individual donors, corporate and business support, and grant writing. At this time, I'd like to recognize our premier sponsors: Boyan Berenshire, Century College, Emergency Contractor Services, F&M Bank, H.A. Cantrude, J.L. Schmieder's Construction, Mueller Memorial, New Studio Architecture, Schmieder's Pottery, Stonehouse Catering, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Keep Zimmer Post 1782, White Bear Lake Lions Club, and the Xcel Energy Foundation. This activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through grants from the Minnesota State Arts Board, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, and this is also made possible in part by the Manitou Fund. I encourage you to check out all of our treasured business sponsors listed on our website and in our catalog, and before you leave tonight, don't forget to pick up a catalog on your way out and take a look at all of our arts experiences and classes that we have here at the Art Center. I would now like to introduce you to Edson Rosas, who will be interviewed tonight by our resident artist, Kyle Fredrickson. Edson Rosas is a queer Mexican-American artist based in Minneapolis. He's a printmaker with a focus in screen printing, but also does relief printing, stone lithography, and copper etching. His current art practice is very autobiographical and explores the many identities that he exists within. According to Edson, Patio de Casa is an exploration of his Mexican roots, an exploration of a part of him that's open and full of warmth, and an exploration of anger. This exhibition explores these themes using print, soft sculpture, and poetry. It takes inspiration from Mexican homes and creates a space that feels like the outside has come in like a patio. And now I'll turn it over to Edson and Kyle.
All right, good evening, everyone. Like Lexi said, my name is Kyle. I'm the resident artist here, and yeah, it's been really fabulous having Edson here working on the installation here that you all been kind of wandering around looking at for a few minutes here. So tonight, we'll do a little bit of just kind of going back and forth. We're certainly going to have Q&A type of thing, so if anybody has any questions, I mean, that'll be the bulk of it. I know you have lots of questions, and if you don't, start thinking of them. And we'll have Edson kind of explain what's going on with his work, because I want him to be able to kind of, share what he's thinking and, what it's about and all that kind of fun stuff, all right? So what I'm gonna do right now is I'll have Edson just kind of explain, just kind of go over what, yourself, your art, your inspiration, whatever that is, and then we'll just kind of keep it really, really, really easy and free tonight, all right? Okay, you're up.
Sweet. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming. First of all, I'm terrible at these things, so I'm just gonna take you through my life journey of how I got here, I guess. I just love saying that I originally started going to school for pre-law. I love saying that just because it's funny to me. Then I stopped doing that because I was like, suits aren't my thing. I took a semester off, just like crying in the grass. I'm super into crying, just like contemplating, thinking about just my life. After that, I was just like, maybe French education's my thing, and then I went to art education, and I just finished with art. Fell in love with printmaking, which was super exciting. I did my undergrad down at Minnesota State University, Mankato. Learned printmaking there, and then I did my MFA over in Portland, Oregon. That was during the height of the pandemic. It was super fun. Learned lots of things. My MFA at home, super exciting. But I say all that just because the work I feel like that I've made during my time in academia it felt like me, but it also didn't really feel like me just because I felt weird. Kind of making work that was receiving a grade that felt very personal to me. I think this is the first body of work that I've made that feels very just like 100% me. I felt comfortable sharing the work because I knew at the end of the day I'm not going to be rushed to finish it to try to receive a grade. So this is, I feel like 100% genuinely me. I consider this kind of just like the beginning of a new body of work that's exploring just who I am as an artist, and yeah, I don't know what else to say.
That's good right there, no doubt. So in this installation here, you've got these three different mediums, right? You've got the painting, you've got the sculpture, you've got the poetry. Do you want to say anything about why do you typically do that, or you know what I mean? Just kind of explain a little bit about what we're looking at there.
Yeah, so when it came to figuring out what print process I wanted to do for this, I have a bunch of kind of positives and just films from previous screen printing projects, and it's all kind of been accumulating. So I've been doing a lot of how to ethically make print without creating such large waste. So I kind of started doing monoprints just because I enjoy doing that. I kind of base my print methods right now on kind of like my emotions. I need to rework the chart because I think I'm in a different headspace when I first made the chart. So when I'm feeling just like extremely depressed, that's etching down in the dumps. Kind of like not having a good day is probably stone lithography. Relief, which I think now is probably my down in the dumps because I recently did a woodcut and I was like, I don't know what's going on right now. But that right now the relief is probably like I'm having a pretty good day, and then screen print and monoprint are like my top tier happiest. I really just love making monoprints. It's just fun. Rolling out ink, shooting the ink, mixing colors. If I could, I'd roll around in ink, but that's probably not the smartest thing to do. But yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Where did the the soft sculpture part come in to play? How was that? How did that come into what you were doing?
Yeah, so I took a 3D class during undergrad, and power tools just scare me to death. And I love just kind of just like making sculptures in general, but I don't want to work with like sawzalls, table saws. I feel like I'll cut my fingers off. So I kind of just fell in love with hand sewing originally. Then after a while, I realized hand sewing really hurts my thumbs. So then I found a sewing machine near a dumpster, which was super exciting. It worked for me for a while. And that's kind of where soft sculpture started just to come around, just because I was able to create three-dimensional objects that don't scare me, that I don't have to use tools that scare me. I also like that I can just like lay on them or like pack them up pretty nicely,
right.
Take the air out of them. I can hug them, I can cry into them. So my thesis for grad school at the end of the pandemic, or not the end or whatever, the main point of that was making work that I was able to hug, I was able to cry in, I was able to talk to just because I wasn't able to do that at the time. So that's kind of where my love for soft sculpture kind of became even more.
Okay, all right, that's good, because I was going to ask about the story of your technique and everything like that. So that's kind of good. I know I've heard several comments even tonight and throughout the time that it's been installed that it's got this nice summer theme. So it's kind of nice to bring in a little bit of the outdoors into here. Nice bright colors with the blue and such like that. So you put down the turf, the grass and stuff like that, right? And then so you brought in all these different mediums with what you were doing and stuff. I mean, is this so? And a couple of people have asked, is this typically what you would do, or you know what I mean? Is it? So we did have a number of people here say, from the grass on up, was that the whole piece of artwork? They're like, well, if I purchase it, do I get the whole thing? And I'm like, well, I don't know if we're gonna cut the wall, but maybe, But I mean, is there anything you want to say about the whole piece, individually?
Yeah, so I guess I have just a weird history. I guess in general, capital A art has a weird history, which is white wall galleries. And I just feel weird putting my work up on a white wall because it just feels like it's a print on a wall, which I guess it is, but I just love seeing my work kind of being immersed within a different space and still be a gallery, if that
Right.
kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
I think that also kind of blends into just my own work right now. Two things existing as one. Grass is real, grass isn't real. That astroturf, that's a real sky, that's not a real sky.
Right.
But yeah, just this existence of like being in the gray area is just something I've kind of really enjoyed existing within. I've kind of started to explore even more heavily now within my work. I also just started ranting. I just lost my train of thought. I hope that answered it.
I wasn't listening. No, I was kidding. I was kidding. No, so and that was the interesting thing because the prints that you have, right? I mean, so they're not framed, right? And then so you kind of created this nice little world out there with just putting these pieces up. Oh, and we did learn that there's these little magnets that Edson uses, and so to hold the work. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So I appreciate you showing me that world. You did great there. So, is there anybody out there? What we're gonna do is we're gonna have pass the mic around, and I'm sure there's some other questions. I don't want to be asking all the questions, just because I'm sure some of you have questions and stuff like that. But I would like to kind of get into that because we don't really need to. I don't want to take. I'm sure they have some questions also. So, Lexi, can you come here for a second? Lexi's gonna be like the mic passer, all right? And so if anybody has any questions for Edson or anything, just Lexi will bring you the microphone so everybody can hear the question.
Would you tell me a little bit about your relationship to the garden?
Yeah, so I guess just when I think about my time kind of growing up in Mexico, I just think of kind of the central area within the home that I kind of started growing up in. It was always just there. At the time, I was like, this is so random. Why am I walking up my bedroom and seeing like grass? Why is there flowers? Because I originally was born in Iowa and I kind of grew up a little bit there and then I moved down to Mexico. So it was kind of an adjustment trying to figure out like there's no carpet inside my living room. Instead it's a garden, which was really nice. I consider a lot of my time down in Mexico just being outdoors. I don't think there's a moment where I felt like I was always just inside with no access to being able to like fresh grass or fresh air. And those are just kind of also like the happier moments or the happier memories within my time down in Mexico as well. Does that answer it?
Hi, Edson. I see you at High Point all the time, and you're always smiling like you are right now, and your artwork, it totally mirrors like your happy-go-lucky, everything else. What does your artwork look like on your bad days then?
I've been exploring that lately. So at the beginning of this body of work, everything was I was trying to make work that was black and white, sharps red, sharp angles. And then at that point, I started to feel like AstroTurf myself. I felt like I was trying to imitate an artist that I wasn't. So I started to kind of think about what does anger look like for me? Is it the stereotypical, this is a very sad print of a black and white person just laying in grass crying. I just felt like that wasn't true to who I am as a person. And then I was like, but I really want to make some sad work because I'm also sad, I'm not just happy. But then I was like, but why do I want to make it sad? I'm just gonna make the work and I'm just gonna look at it and I'm gonna feel sad. That's not the work I wanna make. So I just started to think like, what does anger, what does sadness look to me? And then I started to kind of connect it to passion as well. Because I feel like anger and passion to me kind of runs parallel. So then I had a conversation with Brett about this also, kind of trying to figure out what it means to me. And then I just started thinking, just objects in general from my past, just bright colors, those can be angry. But I guess right now, angry work for me is still trying to figure it out. But I think the words that I use within the words, so the text, I think that's the more anger part of my work currently. The sadder moments.
So, do you have inspiration? I mean, is there inspiration? What inspires you? What helps you to move forward as an artist?
It's not great for the planet, but taking long showers. That's where I get most of my ideas. I guess I get a lot of my inspiration just from mundane things like doing the dishes. I like to make it a self-care day where I just like reset. I'll take a long shower, I'll do the dishes, I'll do laundry. I just get inspired just by doing regular old things, I guess.
Hi, Edson. I'll just make a comment based on what you just said and what I read, in that there's almost like, per what Megan was also asking about, there's an additional duality between like existing in two spaces. The work might be angry, yet it's coming off as like these are very cheery, almost spaces. So again, that's not a question, but it's just kind of something I connected while hearing you talk and after Megan's question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a big fan. My question is, why did you choose to incorporate Google Translate into translating your text?
Yeah, so my history with Spanish, obviously I'm Mexican. My Spanish is probably okay. I can order at taco stands. I'm at restaurants. I'll talk to my mom in Spanish as well. But when it comes to writing, it's terrible. And for the first half of the body of work, I was like, people are gonna think I'm a phony. I'm trying to figure out how to correctly write Spanish with grammar, correctly spell. And then I started thinking about grass and just like existing within two spaces. And I started thinking, Google Translate's funny because sometimes it doesn't translate it correctly, and that's okay to me. So I started using Google Translate as just another form of like existing within two spaces. It's still Spanish to me, but it's also incorrect, which I feel like is very Mexican American of me. It's a great way to communicate as well. I don't know, it's just, I consider Google Translate as AstroTurf, if that makes sense.
So is the texture in your artwork then, is that, oh, someone calling? Oh, Siri's got a question. So talking about the texture, that's what a lot of people are kind of fascinated by with your artwork, okay? So it was these prints that are on the wall, but then there was so much more to it. So it's not really a question, but if you want to kind of talk about, where does that, I mean, I know we just talked about inspiration and things like that, but is that texture like intentional? I mean, are you wanting the roughness of the grass with the softness of the flowers or something like that? I don't even know if that's really a question, but that's my question.
I guess I don't think about texture that much when it comes to kind of the mixture of the soft sculptures and the grass. I'm just more drawn to the grass just because it looks like grass, but it's not. I'm gonna read something to y'all. It's about AstroTurf. I had it pulled up just because. I wrote it on September 6, 2020 about AstroTurf. AstroTurf oftentimes has made an appearance in either my finished installations or gets drawn into the plans for an install. I've never questioned why I'm so intrigued by this false grass. What first comes to mind is the fun idea of grass existing in an indoor environment. It helps create a scene that is supposed to represent the outdoors. At the same time though, it is pretty obvious that the AstroTurf is just fake grass trying to be the real thing. The best AstroTurf is the kind that is so vibrant green it looks fake, but at the same time it's so close to looking like the real thing that it raises questions. I've always been drawn to the concept of found objects, especially found objects that exist within an installation. The weird tingly feeling of things acting as other things is so exciting. It's also comedic. I don't know how to explain it, but the AstroTurf in art just makes me laugh and smile, and I love it. The way AstroTurf licks your hands with its thin plastic green tongues is just so nice. It is like leaning into my ear to sensually whisper that I shouldn't stress so much about creating.
So, what was that written? I mean, that was just your explanation of why. You just want to talk about grass?
Yeah, I guess I also journal as part of my art practice. I just like writing my thoughts down, reflecting. Maybe it's one moment's talking about my art, another moment's just saying, hey, I just got hired at High Point. That's super sweet. That's always been a life goal of mine. It's just a moment of reflection.
Hello. In connection to that, your self-reflection? Like when you're creating, do you find that you look like, you were talking before about talking to people at High Point, like about your process or like what inspires you? Do you feel like you lean to community to help you kind of like flesh out ideas, or do you like go internally? Do you do both?
Normally I would do internal reflection, but lately I've been trying to talk to other people just so I don't feel like I'm making work. And then I'm like, I don't know, is this okay? Does this make sense to y'all? So I've been making an effort to kind of just reach out to friends, talk about my process, and just, I don't know, just exist. I don't know.
So the expression of your thoughts is through creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about humor. I know artists use humor as a device to maybe serve some sort of goal, like maybe they're trying to subvert something or trying to make the viewer uncomfortable or trying to bring something to the viewer. And I'm just wondering how you would answer the question, like what is humor doing in your work? Because when I see it, I see humor all over it, and you bring it up yourself, but what would you say is the goal of that joke or that haha?
Just to make me laugh, I guess. I do a lot of crying, but also I want the work just to make people smile, but also have an understanding there's like other layers beneath it. I don't know, I don't hate like sad work or like black and white work, so no shade to any of you that make that. But just personally, when I see my own work, I just want to smile. And I know there's other things underneath the surface that I can reflect on myself, and hopefully other people see that too, but I don't want them to look at it and just like, oh, and like feel even more sad on the inside. I want them to look at it, reflect like, wow, that sucks. But also like, that's a pretty sweet soft sculpture. I'm gonna cry into it. So it's a way of just comfort, I guess. I think that answered it.
Sorry to talk again. I do have a question this time. I'm curious, you talked about the environment, being kind of important with the display of the more traditional work. In a case like the show that we're viewing here, did you think of the environment first and then make the work that was actually going to go on the wall within the environment first, or the other way around?
The environment came first. I sent some emails to White Bear as placeholders of where the work would go. It's just like a photo of myself with like clown nose. So the environment, I think, always comes first, and then the body of work usually comes second, or usually it goes environment, text, and then body of work. Just because I like to figure out what I'm going to say, and then I base the images off of that.
Hi. Can you speak a little bit to your process in creating your compositions? Are you starting with text and then building those amorphous shapes around that? Or are you bringing your journaling to already created prints?
So I create text first, but then once I get the text written down like on a note sheet, I then create the imagery first, and then I base the text off of the images. Yeah, I just enjoy making prints, and then I figure out the text later because that's not a print. Yeah, I mean, it could be print based, but for this show, I was like, this isn't gonna be print, so I'm gonna focus more on print than printing text, I guess.
Hello again. So I was wondering, do you ever feel pressure to give your artwork meaning?
No. I don't know, I don't think so, no. I love making work, and if some days I'll just make like a silly, goofy drawing, I'm like, well, that's good enough. That's fine art, because I made it, I'm an artist. As much as I love making like shows with deep meanings, I also just love making prints that maybe I'm just gonna give away to a friend. I do a lot of sketching within my own practice, and I consider that my fine art practice as well. So I don't think I ever feel pressure to create just like deep, meaningful works, just because I know at the end of the day it means something to me, and that's pretty meaningful, I guess.
So is there symbolism, or is it just, this is the symbolism created afterwards, like, thought process towards that? Like, this is what I'm gonna need through this, you know?
I guess my sketchbook specific, it's pretty symbolic, so I consider that part of my journaling process as well. So it's maybe I had a rough day, so I go and draw like a sad sandwich, and to me that means a lot. That means I had a really rough day. Maybe the cheese is like on the ground next to the sandwich. I got a flat tire recently, so that's probably gonna make an appearance in some of my sketchbooks recently. I got 2 new tires this morning. It was very stressful. Shout out to Jordan holding the flowers. But yeah, I guess my work is pretty symbolic just because it's very autobiographical. Yeah.
I have one more question to start. Would you ever get any of your tattoo or any of your art designs tattooed on you?
I do have 2 of them. There's one right here, and then the other one's right here. This one I made, this was the first print I made in grad school, and then this one I drew on the wall in my studio at grad school.
That's cool, thank you.
Yeah, there's no meaning, but I mean, this one does kind of have meaning because there was a haiku with it, but this one I just thought was fun and goofy and had no pressure in it, so I was like, I'm just gonna get that tattoo.
It's always nice to be able to take your portfolio with you.
Yeah.
So, that's good.
You were talking about how your art is very expressive and feels like it's a part of your journaling process, so you don't have to answer this directly, but how do you expect it, or how do you see yourself growing into your art, or how do you expect it to evolve as you evolve?
I guess it'll just grow as I grow. I consider myself part of my art practice in a way. So I've been wearing this outfit for any opening I do, for any interview I do, because I just consider it part of the work as well, if that makes sense. Sometimes I'll wear a version of my head over my head just to further push that existing in 2 spaces at once. For an interview I did with my friend Micah, also / Moo Dry Clean, I made a cardboard version of my head to do the interview just because I view the artist and the art kind of one and the same, if that makes sense. That sounds very cheesy also. It sounded cheesy as soon as I said it. But I don't know if that kind of answered your question, but yeah.
Well, I had a flat tire about a month ago in the middle of North Dakota, so I'm gonna have you do some artwork for that. So, I feel your pain. Mine was remote.
So asking this as somebody who's recently trying to get into more creative thinking and writing, but like in my past have never thought like that. How do you cope or like deal with work that you create and you just can't stand?
I rip it up. So a lot of the work so I do just rip up my work in general when I feel like I need to create a new body of work. I just don't like the idea of sitting tucked away in a shelf, being rolled up in a closet. So I just take a moment to just rip it up. It just feels nice, like, oh, I'm about to start a new print. Or I'll turn it around, reuse the paper, make another print on the back of it. It just feels refreshing, feels like I'm taking a shower and coming out brand new, basically. Does that kind of make sense? And also, I don't recommend ripping up your work if that's not your thing.
Right.
How do you know when it's time to rip it up? Like, do you ever get like rip post rip regret?
I don't think I've had post rip regret. Okay, so that's it's true, but also I keep like one version of the print. So it's not completely gone. I still have like a little archive of the work I've made, but most of the edition does get ripped up. I don't think I've ever felt remorse, just because much as I love making work, I also just hate seeing my work tucked away. I'll try to sell it, and if it doesn't sell, I'm like, well, it's time to move on, make a new body of work, start fresh. Same with my soft sculptures. A lot of them get taken apart, made into new soft sculptures. The first ever Ed head, which is another version of myself, my own head, I ripped up, took it apart, and I turned it into a stuffed deer for an installation. And I got ripped up and taken apart to make some more soft sculptures. Once in a while, I'll tuck a little secret into my soft sculpture just because it's fun thinking something's in there and people can't read it. But yeah.
What does the future hold for your artwork?
Um,
Any idea?
I have a lot of ideas. this is, I think, this is a breakthrough in my eyes for work that I've made. I see currently the work evolving into more created scenes. I also do some performance within my own work, so I see myself doing some performance, exploring how passion and anger relate to me in my head, I guess, and doing some performance around that. So I think the next step for me is performance art is more installation.
Any other questions? Good. All right. Thank you, Kyle, and a big thank you to Edson. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to remind everyone, please come back for Edson's Artist Talk, which is on Tuesday, August 8th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Thank you again for coming. Enjoy the show and make yourself at home here and explore the Art Center. And thank you again.